Hello, I'm Virginia Napoleone, and this is another episode of intOndo podcast, the podcast that puts vintage design stories back into circulation. Today, we are going to talk about hidden stories that are disseminated at home, in our workspace, or around the city. Stories of anonymous design that interlock with our daily life. This is a subject which is dear to many great artists and designers, and that will interest those of you who want to look at our most common and humble objects with a critical eye. My hope is that at the end of this episode, you will be gazing at one of the objects around you and say, "Now I really see you." This is in fact what we encourage you to do every day. Guardati in tondo. Look at things around you. Be inspired by good design. Choose pre-existing furniture and support the circular economy. But what exactly are objects of anonymous design? They are mainly utensils, tools, and everyday items that have three main characteristics. Firstly, they are items that perfectly fulfill their function. Secondly, they are inventions that demonstrate to stand the test of time. And lastly, they are things that are available to everyone. You now would say, well, these must be star objects. Yet that's not always the case. Most of them just passed unnoticed, or at least they are rarely associated to a name of a designer, an author, or a brand. Let's make a few examples. You can probably easily visualize the traditional brass lock, or the simplest and one of the simplest and most efficient basic security tool. Or I'm sure you will immediately recognize the classic portable folding beach chair, a model that is essentially so perfect for its function that has never been revised since it was introduced in the 19th century. Or you probably have used at least once in your life my favorite anonymous design object, the Biro ballpoint pen. Let's remind ourselves of how this universal tool was born. We have to go back to 1930s, when the Jewish-Hungarian journalist Laszlo Biro was walking in Budapest while enjoying watching a group of kids playing with glass marbles in the street. At one point, one of the marbles crossed a puddle, leaving behind a net line of water. This simple event inspired Mr. Biro to design a pen that would use much less ink than the regular fountain ink pen. The new tool, one that we still use today, uses a ballpoint that is free to turn into a socket, and as it turns, it picks up ink from a cartridge and then rolls to deposit it on the paper. Biro patented the invention in Paris in 1938. And even if we all know the name of the pen, we don't immediately associate it with its author. Designers of such objects might not necessarily be well known, but there are well-known designers, for example in Italy, that are great fans of anonymous design. I shall mention here Master Bruno Munari, who pushed for establishing a new section of the most important Italian design prize, the Compasso d'Oro, and dedicated it to anonymous projects. His effort was to be more critical with our everyday objects and look at every successful project despite the author and the manufacturer. The other paladin of objects that silently entered into our lives was Achille Castiglioni, a collector of anonymous design items. Among his most successful creations, we can mention one that doesn't bear his signature and that I guess every one of you has used hundreds of times. Designed together with his brother Pier Giacomo Castiglioni for the small Milanese manufacturer VLM, the rompitratta switch is the plastic element that allows us to turn on and off our nightstand lamp. It is particularly useful at night, when in the dark we can activate our lamp just by following the thread of its cord. It is made of two oval plastic elements that hug the electrical wire and of a simple switch that goes up and down, making a click. It is impossible to estimate how many times this electrician item has been sold since its creation. Surely more than any of Castiglione's iconic inventions, such as the Arco floor lamp or the Taccia lamp. And it is well known that the rompitratta was a piece that would make Castiglione proud at each click. The concept of anonymous design, therefore, brings every project at the same level. There is no great designer and no great brand, just a process of evolution of an idea that reach essentially perfection. I like the definition that Jasper Morrison and Naoto Fukasawa gave to these objects in occasion of the exhibition at Access Gallery in Japan in 2006. These are supernormal objects. And let's be clear, we are neither the first nor the last to look with interest at anonymous design. There is a pretty extensive literature you can look into if you are interested in learning more about this subject. I recommend the exhibition catalog Sconosciuti e Familiari, Strangers and Familiar, which recalls the 1987 Zurich exhibition on anonymous Swiss objects designed starting from the 1920s. Or you could have a look at the book Humble Masterpieces by MoMA curator Paolo Antonelli, dated 2005. For the lovers of Italian design, I recommend Design Anonimo in Italia, Oggetti Comuni e Progetto Incognito di Alberto Bassi, published in 2007. Or 100% Achille, the catalog of the exhibition created to celebrate Castiglione's 100th birthday, where 100 contemporary designers gifted the Castiglione Foundation with an object of anonymous design matched by a greeting card directed to the Italian master and his genius. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed our podcast. I'm Virginia Napoleone and this is intOndo Podcast. Remember to visit us at www.intOndo.com for more interesting content and to spot clever objects that are timeless and always useful. Guardati intOndo!